Yay Networks.
The reality is that snacking looks very different for every single one of us. The frequency with which we snack, what we're reaching for, what may seem so strange and so bizarre to some is actually really enjoyable to others. You'll hear some of my things that might be really odd, but I really like it, and maybe you will too. A quick note before we dive into today's podcast. If you like what you hear, I would love for you to subscribe to Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, wherever you download your podcast. It would also be incredible if you take a minute to rate and review this podcast. Those things do matter, and they really help us. I'm Molly Kimball. Welcome to Fueled, a wellness and nutrition podcast. I'm a registered dietitian and nutrition journalist with a passion to help people live their strongest, healthiest life possible. In my weekly TV segments and columns, there's a limited amount of time and space to cover everything, but there's so much more to share. This podcast is my opportunity to dive deeper into the topics you want to know about. We're talking snacking in this week's episode of Fueled Wellness and Nutrition. And snacking has all types of different connotations. You know, it gets a bad rap a little bit. Some people think snacking seems like a bad thing, and they'll say with pride, I don't snack at all. I just have my 3 main meals. I don't snack at all. Other people may not have large meals at all, but they're kind of snacking and nibbling through the day. And that's how they're choosing to fuel their bodies well. So snacking is something that we're talking about because I get a lot of questions about it. And a lot of times on this podcast, I don't really get into these types of things of what do I do, because what I do personally may not be what's best for you. But it's something I get a lot of questions about. It's something that just last week, we had a friend who was staying with us, and he asked, and it's a friend who I know really, really well. He knows me just through and through. And he was like, so Molly, what do you snack on? He had never stayed the night with us. And so I think that kind of just got him thinking. I was thinking, like, what does Molly keep around as a snack? Does she have carbs as a snack around? And I was like, are you kidding me? Yes. So of course I pull out like my favorite, the pink Himalayan sea salt kettle style chips. And of course it's the Costco bag that's taller than our torso if you're sitting in the chair. It's giant. I'm like, I love these. Yes, I eat carbs, and this is one of many parts of different snacks that I have. But it was just interesting that, I do get that question a lot. It's something that I haven't really covered so specifically here. And then when I got that question from him last week, I was like, all right, let's talk about it. So first though, when we look at, well, why do we snack? The reason why we're choosing to snack or we're reaching for something, the reason why really influences what that snack is going to be to some degree. So if you think about it, there's different reasons why we're going to reach for a snack. One is because we're hungry, physically hungry, and we want to reach for something to, take the edge off of that hunger. The other is to fuel our bodies. A lot of times I may not be physically hungry, but I know I'm about to go do something that's really physically exerting. And if I don't eat before, I'm going to bottom out. I'm not going to be able to do whatever that exercise or that movement is that I want to do. So it could be because we're physically hungry. It could be because our energy feels really low. It could be to fuel for something that's coming up, exercise-wise or training-wise. It could also just be because we're craving it. We're craving something salty, crunchy, or chocolatey sweet. It could be because we're passing the time. A lot of times if you've got maybe a work project, especially people who are working from home, standing up, walking into the kitchen can be a way to break the monotony. It can almost, looking in the fridge or reaching in there can kind of be that little like micro reward for our brain and our body, that we're kind of like breaking up what might feel like a task or a chore with these like small little breaks. And a lot of times those breaks might be centered around food. So there's a lot of reasons that we would say, okay, we're going to reach for snacks through the day. Personally, the way that I approach it is I do have lots of, I guess what you would call snacks through the day. I'm looking at them of, okay, how am I going to fuel my brain and fuel my body to do the things that I want to do through the day? And so whenever I'm leaving in the morning, I'll think through where am I going to be. If I'm going to be at my office, which is at Oshner Fitness Center, we have our Fuel Cafe and Market there, which has a ton of Eat Fit options, which I'll walk through in a little bit of kind of some of the things that I'll reach for there, because a lot of them you could recreate something similarly at home. If I'm not going to be in my office, where am I going to be? I want to make sure that I have things that are portable that I could have with me, because I may not take the time to have a full big lunch, but I'm going to have a lot of kind of mini fuelings through the day that you might say, small snacks through the day. And for me, the things that I tend to reach for almost always are savory versus sweet. I would say the exception is at night. And so I'll kind of get into the what on those things. So when we look at, okay, what are some of the general, like just the fundamentals of snacks that also are nourishing our bodies? Because that's the thing that we want to make sure, there's absolutely nothing wrong with having, small, if we call them snacks, if we call them little fuel sources through the day, whatever it is. And for a lot of us, that just makes sense. For some people, they may do best with their 3 meals. They're not going wildly long periods of time between their meals. They're not having their energy drop, their blood sugar, and they're fine and they're stable. For me personally, I think I would struggle with that. That's something that I find satisfaction, like an emotional and just kind of a personal satisfaction out of snacking or having different kind of things that I'm eating throughout the day versus just those 3 main meals. It's something that I enjoy. And it's also what I found, again, kind of fuels my body, fuels my brain well. So when we're looking at like, what are some of these general fundamentals of what makes up that nourishing snack? 3 main elements I would just encourage y'all to think about. Does it have a source of protein? Does it have a source of fats, preferably plant-based fats? And does it have a source of fiber? As you'll hear with mine don't always have all 3, protein, fat, or fiber, but they almost always have at least 2 of those. The reason is when we're having a snack, let's say it's been a couple of hours since a meal, we're pretty, maybe relatively close to an empty stomach. We want to have things that have protein, fiber, and or fat because that's what's going to be sustaining energy-wise. It's what's going to carry us longer term. It's what's going to fuel us longer term. When we have things that are just white, refined or processed carbs, sugars, added sugars especially, they're going to just rev us up and then drop us down. So an example I would say of, and this is what I'm about to say that I would say what not to do. I'm going to talk about these also if you were going to have these as a standalone snack on their own. Graham crackers, pretzels, those things are basically just white flour, same key ingredients as you'll see in white bread, packaged differently. They taste different. They are marketed differently to us. They are still just essentially white bread. So graham crackers or pretzels, if that's what you're reaching for as a standalone snack on its own, that means on an empty stomach, you're essentially having the equivalent of a few pieces of white bread, picking you up, dropping you down. If you said, but I really love having those graham crackers or pretzels, all right, well then let's have graham crackers and let's put a little almond butter on them or peanut butter on them. Or if you've got those pretzels, let's dip it in a little guacamole. So now we've got some of these other things that are adding a little something more sustaining to it. So that's sort of the idea of just thinking through, what am I eating? Does it have protein, fiber, and or fat? At least 2 of those. The exception, I would say, is when that snack or whatever that little, let's call it a snack, is not necessarily a standalone snack, but it might be like a sweet treat after a meal. So let's say after your meal, you like to have a square of chocolate or dark chocolate, or you do like going back to the graham crackers. I don't know how many of y'all are eating graham crackers, but for some reason that's come into my mind for that because it is sort of that sweet that seems like it's a better for us option. So maybe something like a little square of graham cracker, square of dark chocolate is sort of just that little something you wanted sweet after a meal. That's fine because you already have, hopefully with that meal, that protein, that fiber, that fat that meal is carrying. So having a little bit of that after, you don't have to think, what am I going to put on this graham cracker or what am I having with this dark chocolate that's going to give me like that protein or plant-based fat. So the idea that we're going to be talking about today is when it's a standalone snack, when it's separated from other meals by at least a couple of hours. And I want to reiterate, we'll be talking about snacks that are nourishing fuel sources. And that's what I would encourage you to think about most of the time. There's always going to be that time, though, that you're going to have something that you're reaching for as that snack simply for pleasure, simply because we want it. And that is absolutely okay. I would encourage you, though, through the day, as you're looking at how am I going to sustain my energy? How am I going to kind of avoid the highs and lows, avoid that energy roller coaster, trying to avoid some of the things like if it were just, let's say, gummy bears or, just kind of sugary candy or cookies, cakes, pastries, that type of a thing. Having those as a standalone snack almost always we're setting ourselves up for more cravings for that energy roller coaster. However, there always are those times that we would say, you know what, I really want it. I'm going to treat myself. I would just take a really close look at how often that's happening and try at least for the vast majority of the time that when we are reaching for these snacks through the day, it is something that's truly nourishing to our bodies, nourishing to our physical bodies. But then also for me, a lot of the things that I'm reaching for, really everything that I'll be sharing with y'all that I'm reaching for, I really like it. So it's not just physically nourishing to me, it's also emotionally nourishing. I love having it. I enjoy having it. So also, y'all, I have to say, it feels really weird to just do an entire podcast for y'all on what I choose to have as my snacks, what I choose to snack on. And it feels like one of those things that, I don't know, I guess I get enough questions about it that I'm going to share with y'all. But as I'm about to get into this, I'm finding myself procrastinating, getting into saying what I actually eat because I'm like, is this something that is interesting? I hope that y'all find it interesting. Like I said, I get enough questions. Somebody really super close to me, when they asked that, I was like, here we go. That's it. I'm going to do a podcast on this. So for me personally, I typically reach for savory versus sweet. The exception for me would be after dinner, which I'll share with y'all when we get to that. But for me, it's almost always savory, salty, crunchy. So I'll just kind of start at the top. Macadamias are probably my top snack that I keep around. So all types of nuts I'll have, whether it's cashews or almonds, but macadamias are my favorite. And what I do with these is I'll buy them either raw or dry roasted. I'll spread them across a sheet pan, and we have one of the olive oil spritzers. It's like a non-aerosol olive oil spritzer. So I spritz them with a little bit of the olive oil. I sprinkle a little sea salt on there, and then I also put a plant-based sweetener like Swerve, just a little bit, and I kind of shake it all around on there. So now I'll roast them just kind of at a low heat, and it just kind of crunches them up a little bit, and it also gives that little bit of a sweet and saltiness to them. And I put them in a big Tupperware, and then I'll have an ounce or two of those as a snack through the day. So I like just regular roasted macadamias, but I also really like them in the way that I told you all about. If I'm going into Oshner Fitness Center, I mentioned that we have Fuel Cafe and Market there. We have candied cashews it's actually something my friend Ben McLaughlin shared this recipe with me a couple of years ago as like a holiday gift guide idea. And the candied cashews and I'll try to remember to put the link to that in the episode notes for y'all. But these are also a Swerve sweetened product, and it's just heavier amount of it. And you do it over the stove, and you kind of toss it in there, and like roast that, roll the cashews through there, and then spread it on the sheet pan. They're absolutely delicious. It just takes a little more time. So that's why I do the macadamia approach that I told y'all. Just spread them on the sheet pan, hit it with a little bit of the olive oil spray, hit it with a little sea salt, a little Swerve, bake them at that low temp till they kind of get a little crispy, and then let them cool, put them in that Tupperware. I have that kind of sweet, salty, crunchy, savory. At work, at my office at Oshner Fitness Center, if I'm like, man, I didn't bring a snack, the zero sugar, air quote, candied cashews are just delicious. So it depends on what you want to take the time for at home, but I'll put the recipe for the cashews on the episode notes. But that's just the easy one. Could we also just do plain raw cashews or macadamias or almonds? Absolutely. And the raw, I know people are going to say, but wait, I thought the raw was better for you. The raw is fantastic. It is higher in enzyme, the enzyme content. You are losing some of that as you roast them at that low temp. That's just how I like them. I like them better. So being fully aware that yes, raw is an option, and raw and salted would absolutely be an option. Personally, when we go back to that, why do we snack? And we talk about what's also emotionally fulfilling for us, those two alternatives I just told you work for me. Let's talk a bit about Athletic Greens, one of our partners for this week's episode. Just a single scoop of Athletic Greens gives us 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to fuel our day well. This special blend of ingredients supports our gut health, nervous system, immune system, energy, recovery, and focus. It also tastes really good. It's slightly sweet, slightly tropical. My husband and I each blend a serving of athletic greens into a smoothie. It's often in the afternoon. We'll add protein powder or collagen powder with unsweetened coconut milk and something like maybe a handful of berries. You can also get athletic greens in packets, which are super convenient for travel. It's lifestyle friendly, so whether you're following a keto diet, vegan, dairy-free, gluten-free, this can work for you. It also has less than 1 gram of sugar, no chemicals, no artificial anything. Your subscription also comes with a year supply of vitamin D. It costs less than $3 a day, and you're investing in an all-in-one nutritional insurance. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is giving a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/fueled. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/fueled to take ownership of your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. So staying in the theme of that kind of like salty, crunchy, savory, I love dips. And there's so many, like very few dips do I not really love. And what I'm really excited about is there's a lot of plant-based creamy style dips out on the market now. So y'all have heard me talk about bitchin' sauce before. They have lots of different varieties, but it is an almond-based creamy dip that's just like really savory. There's a few, actually, I'm doing a TV segment coming up in a few weeks on plant-based dips. So I bought a whole bunch of them, tried them, asked my husband to try them because there's a few out there that have been just really not great. And we've actually, unfortunately, haven't finished them and they kind of went to waste. So I was a little hesitant and I was like, Brad, try these with me. I like them, but make sure it's not just me with the, nutritionist taste buds that I'm enjoying this. And so with Brad, with our family, they definitely got a thumbs up. So I'll share just a couple of the names with y'all really quickly. There's one called Credo, Credo. The one that we have from them is a jalapeno popper dip. It's really good. The bitchin' sauce I should mention, I'm also finding recently, again, at Costco. And then also at Costco, there is a dip called Blue Moose. This is a plant-based dip, and it is kind of a queso-style dip. But it's actually made from cashews, and so completely plant-based. We would say vegan, but a lot of times the brands don't want to pigeonhole themselves as vegan, so they'll say plant-based. So the bitchin' sauce, this Blue Moose, both of those are at Costco. There's a brand called Kite Hill. You'll see that in the yogurt section, but they also have Kite Hill has a queso that is really, really good. It's made with almond milk. And then there's a brand called Good Call. It is good. And then the second word is Call. So Good Call. It is a savory dip. We've had several of them. The roasted chipotle is probably my favorite. It's actually made with cauliflower. So cauliflower is the primary ingredient in here. Then it has things like tahini, chipotle sauce. So those are really flavorful ways that are giving us primarily fats. And again, those plant-based fats, some protein, but mostly plant-based fats. What I dip in there will vary. So any kind of plant-based dip. Again, the two most common to find is going to be Blue Moose at Costco or bitchin' sauce is at a lot of different stores, but also look for that Kite Hill queso, the Good Call, and then also Credo or any others. And if you find other plant-based dips that you really like, let me know as well. Because they've definitely, if it's been a while since you've tried them, try them again because they've really come a long way. So what I dip in them varies depending on what I've got going on. So if I want to have that source of carbs, I mentioned before, I'm going to be doing some sort of movement and I want to have that fuel for whatever type of activity I've got coming up, or also after that workout. And I'm looking for a bit of carb for that replenishment. And that's probably the more common with these because some of these kind of have a spice in them. So I may not want to eat those right before I'm going to go do more high intensity physical movement because I don't want to taste it while I'm doing that. Sorry. But for the visual. So I might instead have these after that workout when I'm looking for carbs for a bit of that replenishment. I'm also looking for sodium for a bit of that replenishment. And when we talk about which chips, I mentioned to y'all I love the pink Himalayan sea salt chips, the Kettle brand that's at Costco. There's so many different types of chips that you can get now too. There's Beanfields has black bean or white bean chips that are really surprisingly good. If you haven't seen them, or you haven't tried them, try them. They're really, really great. There's also sweet potato chips that are just like really simple ingredients, just like those kettle chips I was telling you all about. They're basically potatoes, oil, and salt, or sweet potatoes, oil, and salt. So you can get just really simple, clean label ingredient chips to dip into your plant-based dips. Also, what I'll keep around is just like red or yellow peppers, slicing that, dipping it in there, or jicama. And I don't usually slice, actually never have bought the jicama and sliced it myself. It will be in the produce section that it will already be sliced into sticks for you and sort of in a grab and go prepared space. So for the plant-based dips, that's something that I love, especially if I'm looking for salt, like I mentioned, kind of after a workout to help with that replenishment. Pairing it with chips when I want those carbs, or pairing it with red and yellow peppers sliced and raw for dipping, or jicama sticks for dipping. Then some of the other things that I do, I don't know if you're going to think these are that exciting or that interesting, but I'm going to share anyway. And they may sound kind of odd. A lot of times my snacks may actually be just like leftovers. So if we have leftover Indian, for example, so like a chicken tikka masala, or if we have like a lamb coconut curry and we have leftovers of that, I may have like a small little bowl of that. And that actually is a snack. I just heat it up. There's a snack for me. If we have Thai leftovers, I love like green curry with shrimp, and I'll have that. This is going to sound strange to y'all, and I know it is, but if I don't have enough protein in there, because a lot of times if you've gotten things like the Indian dishes that I just mentioned, as you're having it for dinner, you may, or whatever meal you're having, but you may kind of serve out all the protein out of it, but you have this great, delicious sauce left. So sometimes I'll heat up that and I'll have the sauce, but if I don't feel like I have enough protein still in there, either if I have some other type of protein just in the fridge that I can add to it and toss it through. But another thing that has actually worked for me, and again, it's not going to be for everybody, but I'll take collagen powder, because collagen powder is unflavored. It dissolves well. It sort of just disappears into what you stir it into. So one of the things also that I do with it, which is I think the more common way, is you can put collagen into coffee. You can put collagen into iced coffee. At our fitness center, we have a collagen cafe frappe that is basically coffee concentrate and your unsweetened milk of choice, and then the collagen powder and ice, and it kind of whips it up into this frothy collagen cafe frappe. It's also in our Eat Fit cookbook. Or at home, I'll do collagen coffee hot or collagen coffee iced, maybe as kind of like a mid-morning or early afternoon snack. And so what I'll put in there is 2 scoops of collagen. I usually use Vital Proteins, but I'll vary that depending on what's available. And I'm getting 20 grams of protein. 20 grams of protein is about what you get in 3 ounces of meat. So going back to those leftover sauces, I'll put 2 scoops of collagen powder into there, heat it up a bit, put 2 scoops of collagen powder and kind of stir it up. It doesn't change the texture of something like coffee or a smoothie so much. In those sauces, it does make it a little more gummy, but not so much that I don't like it. I still really like the sauce. I don't do that on the regular, but I'll do that if I am really pressed and I'm like, man, I've got that left over. I don't want that sauce to go to waste, but I don't have a convenient protein in the fridge that I can pair it with, and there's not enough left in that dish. I'll do that. Again, one of those things that, you know how it is. There's always things that someone does that you're like, I'm not so sure about that. I get it, that's one of those things for a lot of y'all, but for some of you, it may actually be something you would do. So leftovers a lot of times end up being a snack for me. I'll get small portions of salmon, and especially if it's a day that I'm working from home, I'll just get 4-ounce portions of salmon, 3-4 ounces, throw that in the skillet while I might be doing something else. I could be on a call, whatever. And that might be a snack that I'll have. I love the Go Creole as a local seasoning, locally made seasoning that I'll put on there, but any and all types that you can put on there. Let's talk for a minute about Ritual, one of our partners for this week's episode. Protein isn't just about building muscle mass. Protein also helps to support our bone health. It keeps us feeling fuller longer. And Ritual's Essential Protein is a great tasting plant-based protein powder with 3 separate formulas that are designed to meet a variety of protein needs. I like that Ritual offers a super flexible subscription service, and it's so easy to incorporate into our own daily rituals. The Ritual difference means that it's traceable. With Ritual's completely transparent supply chain, you can know the ins and outs of every single ingredient. It's also sustainably sourced. Each blend has 20 grams of pea protein per serving and no sugar, no sugar alcohols. It's soy-free, gluten-free, and non-GMO. If you're ready to shake up your protein ritual, listeners get 10% off during your first 3 months at ritual.com/fueled. Ritual even offers a money-back guaranteed if you're not 100% in love. Visit ritual.com/fueled today for 10% off your first 3 months. So salmon salad is another thing that I'll do. The pre-made varieties I really like from a place like Whole Foods or Fresh Market. So they have it already made. They have it in kind of little clamshell containers, and you can just grab it and go. At our fitness center at Fuel Cafe and Market, we have something similar with chicken salad and also tuna salad that are made with Greek yogurt. And if I have my act together and I've kind of got myself together and I've got the ingredients on hand, I mentioned I kind of have those fillets of salmon. I'll also cook up a few of those in advance and then kind of make my own salmon salad with that, especially if I had maybe leftover fish that it's not going to be quite so great reheated the next day, but I could make a little bit of salmon salad with that. And with that, you can use mayonnaise. There's so many different versions of just like really simple, streamlined ingredient mayonnaises these days. You could also use Greek yogurt. When we use Greek yogurt at Fuel Cafe, that I keep talking about in Osher Fitness Center for those Eat Fit dishes, we use the higher fat Greek yogurt. It's Chobani, either 4 or 5%, or it is Fage, the whole milk Greek yogurt, because the difference it makes in that flavor and texture is tremendous. And the amount you're using is not adding just so much animal-based saturated fat. So macadamias, the cashews I talked about, the plant-based dips with chips or veg, the leftovers, whether it's Indian or Thai, and if I don't have enough protein, a lot of times already in it or in my fridge to add into it, I'll add a little bit of collagen into that. I may just grill a piece of salmon. I may have leftover salmon from dinner that I'll turn into salmon salad with a little mayo or Greek yogurt and some fresh herbs or spices, or salmon salad or tuna salad from Fresh Market or Whole Foods or Fuel Cafe and Market. And then I mentioned collagen already in the kind of strange savory sauce that I do, but also collagen coffee or collagen iced coffee or collagen cafe frappe at our fitness center, which is also really easy to make at home. If you're already blending smoothies, super easy. Another thing that I'll do, and I find that this really works well, I think I've mentioned before on this podcast that my husband is teaching me tennis, and it's really a different type of energy use than what I've been used to. A lot of times I'm doing workouts that are maybe more kind of like steady state workout, and this with like the stop starts, the pops of, high heart rate and kind of the short intense burst of energy. For me, I have to really think about what I'm eating before that's going to fuel me through. And I did an experiment. One of the sponsors for this podcast a few episodes ago was NutriSense, which is a continuous glucose monitor, and I was fascinated by it. I'm actually going to be doing an entire podcast on it. I think it's going to air next week, y'all, but on my experience with the continuous glucose monitor. And that was eye-opening because I was really looking to see what am I going to eat before tennis, because sometimes I would find myself really bottomed out. And so I was able to see in real time what I ate before and how it was affecting my blood sugar for hitting for an extended period of time, where again, that kind of intense burst of energy that I haven't always been used to having that high level of intensity sustained. So what I actually found out really worked well for me is almost like a little fold over quesadilla, but with an almond flour tortilla. And the brand I use is Siete, but there's a lot of different ones. And typically they're not just almond flour. It might be a blend of almond flour, coconut flour, tapioca starch. So they have some carbs. They're just not really high carb. And then I melt something like a full fat cheese on it. Lately I've been in provolone for some reason. It's really melty and stretchy. But having enough of that, what we talked about earlier, that fat, the protein, and then also the bit of fiber in there, that is what I have found has been the most sustaining for me. So if I know that I'm going to have that high intensity exercise, making something like that almond flour tortilla, melting a little bit of cheese on there, folding it over, that has worked really well. And that would be in addition to some of these other things that we talked about. But for me, that's been something that's been like eye-opening, because I did try other snacks. Like I actually thought before I hit something like those kettle chips, maybe it was just a good excuse, I thought, to eat the kettle chips before. But I was looking at that as that fuel source, because you would think it's carbs. It has some fats. I might have it with a little bit of cheese or guacamole or something like that to give more fats. And I found that I was dropping really low, like blood sugars into the 50s with that. So I was like, wow. So it just wasn't, my body wasn't responding to that well. It was given that quick spike, and then it was dropping me at a time I didn't want it to drop during that workout. So for me, what I find before that workout is something like that almond flour tortilla with cheese and full fat cheese melted on it, sustains. And when I use that continuous glucose monitor for about a month, so I was able to see and track to see kind of trends, and consistently that worked for me. Let's talk about Nutrafol for a minute, one of our partners for this week's episode. The nutrients and Nutrafol supplements support healthy hair growth from within by targeting the 5 root causes of thinning: stress, hormones, environment, nutrition, and metabolism. Nutrafol is a physician-formulated nutritional supplement that is made with potent botanicals. So no matter your stage in life, Nutrafol has a solution. Nutrafol has targeted formulas for women and men that are clinically shown to improve hair growth and thickness through all stages of life. It is possible to grow thicker, healthier hair and support our show by going to Nutrafol.com, entering promo code FUELED to save $15 off your first month's subscription. This is our best offer anywhere. It's only available to U.S. customers for a limited time. Plus, free shipping on every order. Get $15 off at Nutrafol.com. That's spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code FUELED. So a few other things that I'll share. I mentioned at our Fuel Cafe and Market, we have the candied cashews, which I'll put the recipe for. We have the tuna salad or chicken salad, kind of in the little clamshell containers, that's made with the Greek yogurt. We have that collagen cafe frappe. We also have like a green goddess smoothie that has all these different greens in it, and you can get it either with plant-based protein powder or with collagen powder or a whey-based protein powder. But and then your milk of choice, unsweetened milk of choice. Those are things, again, that are pretty easy to make at home as well. And then 2 other things that I really love at our fitness center, we have a caprese layer cup. And so it's basically layers of like buffalo mozzarella, kind of that fresh mozzarella slices with fresh tomato and basil. And you can do that with a little bit of balsamic vinegar, balsamic reduction. It's delicious. And that's something that we sell kind of layered into these cups. But it's something that you could do, make something like that and do a couple of days worth and just kind of have it in like a little ball jar or something like that in your fridge. We also have what we call a salmon paleo cup, and that is grilled salmon, and it's kind of shredded. And then we have that layered with eggs and like halved cherry tomatoes. And then the dressing that we have with that is, I believe it's Hanley's Sensation dressing, but any of the Hanley's dressings go really well with that. So those are all things I've said that, like, I've let y'all know kind of in the beginning, almost everything I reach for is savory. I guess on the sweeter side, these aren't really sweet, but I'll share. Cottage cheese or Greek yogurt. Those make obviously really easy, convenient snacks. My preference, interestingly, is cottage cheese. I don't know. I grew up with cottage cheese. My dad and I had it often. I like the lumpiness of it. I like large curd cottage cheese, which my husband finds hilarious because he's like, I can't even believe you have an opinion about curd size of cottage cheese. But it's not easy to find large curd. It's usually small curd. So it's not easy to find large curd cottage cheese also that's not like fat-free or low fat, because I do want, for the reasons we talked about earlier, I do look for the full fat cottage cheese. Again, the saturated fat we're getting from that is not so high that it is detrimental. And, you know, especially when you're having like what would be kind of a single serving container of Greek yogurt or cottage cheese, we're not getting tons of it. And the difference it makes in that satisfaction, the enjoyment that I have of it, plus that sustaining factor that the fats give us, is my preference. So Greek yogurt, my favorite hands down, is the Fage 2% or full fat. And then, but there's a lot. And of course, there's plant-based yogurts as well. We've done an entire podcast on yogurts. And cottage cheese, I really like that. Daisy cottage cheese, you can find that at every single store pretty much. Walmart and every other location is going to have it. Daisy has some of the simplest ingredients. Like it's truly just a handful of ingredients. And it doesn't have any add-ins or thickeners or stabilizers and stuff like that. I love that Daisy just came out with, they may not have just come out with, but I just discovered it. It's the little single serve cartons that you just pull the little label back, and then, it's not the pint or the quart of it. It's just a little single serve cartons. And it has, I believe, like 15 or 17 grams of protein. And they have, the low fat versus the fat free. The other that I love, there's a brand called Good Culture, and I've only seen this at Whole Foods, but Good Culture has the single serving cups of cottage cheese. They have some that are sweet that actually have strawberries and stuff like that added, but they have just the plain, and they have the full fat cottage cheese as well. So I like that because sometimes, again, I mentioned what am I going to take with me that I'm heading out with. You could buy the larger and divvy it up, absolutely. But for me, that convenience outweighs it sometimes. If I can just reach in the fridge, grab it and go. I'll put it with berries. I'll often just have it plain. I enjoy it that way. And then kind of going back to, I'm sorry, y'all, it's kind of strange, but I actually like crushing up some of either the pink Himalayan sea salt kettle chips I was telling you about, the ones that we get at Costco, or the beanitos. My sister-in-law was horrified the first time she saw me doing that. I remember we were driving across the lake. We were going to pick blueberries, and I had a snack, and I had cottage cheese, and I had like the nacho cheese. I think it was either the bean field chips or beanitos. And I had crushed them up. I was actually kind of using them as like a scoop in the cottage cheese. And she was like, that is the grossest thing I think I've ever seen. But I really like the savory of that chip and the crunch of that chip with also kind of the creamy of the cottage cheese. So there's all different ways that you can do it. But if you want to try my chip solution as the dipper into your cottage cheese, let me know what you think. Or just plain. Berries are super easy. A tip on berries, and if you haven't tried this, if you're using frozen berries, like frozen blueberries do this really well, or blackberries, if you let them thaw, they just kind of release their own natural juices. It almost becomes syrupy if you put that into your Greek yogurt or cottage cheese. Syrupy in a good way because it's without any added sugar. But again, when it's frozen and then you let it thaw, you could even put it in the microwave or heat it up for just a quick 10 or 15 seconds. That to help it thaw a little quicker, but they're going to release those juices that just kind of add like that nice extra sweetness into that. So those I would say are kind of the last things. The cottage cheese primarily, sometimes the Greek yogurt with any of those other solutions. And then I did want to mention when we're talking about chips, there's a brand called iWon, IWON. They have pea-based proteins. So they are plant-based. They're made with pea protein, and they have little protein puffs and little protein sticks. If you haven't seen them, keep an eye out for them. I usually see them at places like a GNC or Vitamin Shop. Looking for these, or you can also, of course, buy them online. But the fiber's pretty high. The protein's pretty high. They're in little single-serve packages as well. And that can be something that's just easy, portable. You can keep it in your office or your car. So if you didn't plan, something like that can also always be a nice fallback. And then finally, so what about the sweets that we have? One, I would say is the nighttime is the time that I'm usually going to look for something sweet after dinner. And one is peanut butter cups, and specifically the no sugar added salted dark chocolate peanut butter cups. I actually make them with almond butter. But it is from our Eat Fit cookbook. I'll also link to the recipe for that in the show notes of this episode. Since our cookbook came out in 2019, I have kept these. These are in our fridge always. I used to make like a double batch, and now I make like a triple batch because my husband is just crazy about them too. And so it's something that he has that if he's looking for something sweet. Many people, I don't know if I would say most people, but I actually would probably say most people, when they have it, they're like, oh my gosh, this is better than a Reese's peanut butter cup. They are really, really good, y'all. They kind of get goopy if they are at room temp, so you want to keep it in the fridge, but they're really delicious. So the homemade zero sugar, all plant-based natural sweeteners of the peanut butter cups, which in this case are salted dark chocolate almond butter cups. And again, whatever nut butter you want to use. My sister-in-law uses cashew butter often. They're delicious. So whatever works for you, you can make it that way. And I'll link to the recipe. That's one option I'll often have after dinner. And it has nothing to do with hunger at that point, and it might be right after dinner. It might be an hour or two after dinner. It often has nothing to do with hunger. It has everything to do with, I kind of want something sweet. The other thing that I've been keeping around lately is high key cookies. Carolyn Ketchum is the brilliant baker, low carb, gluten-free baker. She has the blog All Day I Dream About Food. A couple of months back, she and I did an entire episode on cookies. So basically, it was right around the holidays, around like December of 2021, this past December. And we did it, about how to bake the perfect gluten-free, low-carb cookie, how to troubleshoot your recipes for this. And then she and I did a live on our podcast, in real time taste test of a bunch of these different store-bought cookies that are lower carb, gluten-free. And the high key cookies, she said those are the cookie that affects her blood sugar the least. She really has to be mindful of her own glucose levels. And then I mentioned to y'all that I had used that continuous glucose monitor for a month. I found the same thing. So it's something that if I'm going to have something at night like that, I don't want to have something right at night close to bedtime that's going to spike and raise my glucose levels. Because what I found is when I did, they were elevated through the night, often like continuously. And it was, wow, like elevated. Well, I'll get into that next week. But I found that the high key cookies were one that truly had zero impact on my glucose levels. And so they're small. They're like, I don't know, the size of a nickel, about as big around as a nickel. Little kind of like little cookie bites, and they have them at stores like Whole Foods, but Costco also has them. They have several different varieties of flavors in them, but something like that is a product that I have been reaching for at night if I do want something sweet. So it's a toss up between those peanut butter cups that we make and keep in our fridge or something like that high key cookie. Both of those are ways to have something sweet at night after dinner when it has nothing to do with hunger, when it has everything to do with kind of what you're in the mood for or what you're kind of craving. And they also have no added sugar and aren't going to elevate our glucose levels right as we're heading into sleep. So I hope this has been helpful for you, maybe giving you some ideas or taking some of the judgment out of the things either that you're choosing to snack on or the frequency with which you snack. Because again, it looks very different for everybody. Some of the things I shared that I do for snacks you may think are horrifying, or you may be like, wow, that actually sounds interesting. Let me give it a try. Point being, snacking and smart snacking and fueling our bodies well looks very different for every single one of us. So if this is giving you some ideas, if you've tried anything new from this, if you have some of your favorite snacks that you're like, hey, this is what really works well for me, this is what fuels me, this is what sustains me really well, and you think I need to know about it, share it with me. I always want to hear about it. I am registered dietitian Molly Kimball, and you've been listening to Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, the podcast. If you would like more Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, please head over to mollykimball.com, and you can follow me, Molly Kimball RD, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And if you haven't yet, please go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Join us next week for another dose of Fueled Wellness and Nutrition. Thanks for listening, and stay focused on living your strongest, healthiest life.